Well, we actually have obtained new movement records, GPS data. Our Jared Eggleston and Skylar Henry down in Mississippi obtained this from a Mississippi entity, and it actually shows exactly where the boat left from when it arrived at Horn Island.
On July 4th, 18-year-old Nolan Wells stepped onto Horn Island with friends. 2 days later, a park ranger found his body in the water, so unrecognizable he could only be identified via dental records. Immediately, the internet exploded with viral pool party photos and audio of a screaming match, claiming murder. But metadata and eyewitnesses just blew those theories entirely apart. What actually happened in Nolan's final minutes? The viral narrative has collapsed, but the real investigation is just beginning. Subscribe now to True Crime Files for the verified facts, not the internet fiction, as this case heads to a grand jury. The internet does not tolerate a vacuum. When an 18-year-old boy goes missing from a crowded holiday beach and returns in a body bag, the public demand for answers creates an intense, immediate pressure. If the authorities do not provide a narrative within 24 hours, the digital court of public opinion will manufacture one. In the days following the discovery of Nolan Wells's body off the northwestern tip of Horn Island, the digital world did exactly that, spinning a terrifying web of conspiracy, betrayal, and violence that captured the attention of millions across the globe. It began with a single, unverified Facebook post from an account with no clear connection to the Wells family. The post laid out a chilling sequence of events. Nolan had not drowned on July 4th. Instead, the author claimed, he had returned from Horn Island alive and well. The post alleged that Nolan had attended an exclusive, late-night pool party in Jackson County on July 5th. According to this digital whistleblower, an altercation broke out at the party, a brutal, targeted beating that left Nolan unresponsive. The narrative concluded with an even more sinister claim: to cover up the crime, those involved loaded his lifeless body onto a boat, drove back out into the Mississippi Sound, and dumped him into the water to make it look like a tragic swimming accident. To a skeptical observer, it read like true crime fiction. But in the ecosystem of modern social media, a shocking story doesn't need proof to thrive, it only needs an anchor. That anchor arrived in the form of an Instagram photo uploaded by an account with fewer than 1,000 followers. The image, which was quickly deleted but not before being screenshotted thousands of times, appeared to show Nolan grinning in a swimming pool, surrounded by a group of young people. Within hours, the photo and the Facebook narrative merged. TikTok creators dissected the image, zooming in on the expressions of the people in the background, analyzing body language, and mapping out the alleged timeline of the assault. The algorithm did its work, pushing the content to hundreds of thousands of feeds. What began as a random social media post had transformed into an undeniable viral movement. The momentum became unstoppable when Benjamin Crump, the prominent civil rights attorney retained by Nolan's family, stepped into the fray. Crump did not invent the rumor, but by reposting the pool party image to his massive Instagram following, he inadvertently validated the internet's obsession. Though Crump's caption included a careful legal caveat, stating that his team did not yet know whether these claims were facts or rumors, and that they were simply following all clues, the nuance was completely lost on the audience. For much of the internet, the attorney's involvement elevated the conspiracy theory to absolute fact. The court of public opinion had found its verdict, a cover-up was underway, and Nolan's friends were the perpetrators. But the digital crusade was hungry for more than just a photo. It needed audio. It needed a smoking gun. A second piece of evidence soon surfaced, a shaky video captured from a boat near Horn Island, recorded in the chaotic aftermath of the holiday weekend. The footage itself revealed very little visually, but the audio was electric. Through the wind and the engine noise, a voice could be heard screaming in a raw, frantic panic. The speaker was locked in a heated exchange with someone just out of frame, shouting over and over, "Asterisk, give me my freaking phone." What are you freaking doing? Asterisk. The video spread like wildfire. To the millions watching at home, it felt like listening to a boy fighting for his life, or at least fighting to retain the one piece of evidence that could expose his friends. The narrative reached its absolute peak when Ben Crump appeared on Good Morning America alongside Nolan's grieving parents. Speaking to anchor Michael Strahan, Crump played the audio for a national television audience. He stated plainly that he believed the voice on that recording belonged to Nolan Wells, locked in a desperate argument on the boat before he disappeared. Strahan echoed the collective skepticism of the public, noting that in the modern era, no teenager willingly leaves their cell phone behind unless something has gone terribly wrong. By the end of that broadcast week, the true crime community had completely integrated these two pieces of media into a seamless timeline of events. The official police statements, which quietly maintained that the case was being investigated as an unexplained death with a strong suspicion of accidental drowning, were dismissed by the public as incompetent or complicit. Online commentators demanded immediate arrests, sharing the names and faces of the teenagers who had been on the boat with Nolan that day. This was the peak of TikTok justice, a perfectly constructed, emotionally devastating narrative supported by visual and auditory proof, championed by a famous attorney on a major news network. It was a story that felt too intense, too specific, and too tragic to be anything other than the truth. Yet, underneath the millions of views, the thousands of shares, and the rising tide of public outrage, a massive problem was quietly brewing. The entire viral structure was built on a foundation of digital sand. Almost nobody in the comments sections or the true crime forums had stopped to ask the most fundamental investigative questions, asterisk, who actually took that photo? When was that video recorded? And whose voice is really screaming into the wind? As the online noise reached a deafening crescendo, the actual individuals involved in that fateful July 4th weekend were forced into a corner. The digital world had written its script, but the real world was about to push back. The problem with a digital wildfire is that it burns through information without checking its substance. For days, the internet had operated under the absolute certainty that Nolan Wells was alive on July 5, that he had been beaten at a pool party, and that a video recording captured his final, desperate argument on a boat. The narrative was clean, theatrical, and perfectly tailored for algorithmic outrage. But real-world investigations do not rely on likes and shares, they rely on metadata, dates, and eyewitness accounts. When independent journalists and the individuals actually present on that boat finally broke their silence, the internet's ironclad case did not just fracture, it completely imploded. The first major blow to the viral narrative came from a traditional investigative source. On July 13, Rolling Stone published an exposé that systematically dismantled the timeline of the alleged pool party cover-up. Journalists had managed to secure the original photo metadata from an independent source entirely separate from the social media echo chamber. In digital forensics, metadata is an unalterable digital footprint, stamping an image with the exact second, minute, hour, and date the camera shutter closed. The results were definitive. The viral photo showing Nolan smiling in a pool surrounded by his peers had not been taken on July 5. It had not even been taken in July. The metadata proved the image was captured on June 27, 8 full days before Nolan ever stepped foot onto a boat bound for Horn Island. The party in question had not taken place in Jackson County as the Facebook rumor claimed, but miles away in Pass Christian, Mississippi. To further solidify the timeline, a close friend of Nolan's named Tristan Shepard stepped forward to speak with both Rolling Stone and ABC News. Shepard, a young black man who belonged to the same tightly knit friend group, confirmed the June 27 date. He explained that he hadn't even attended the party himself because he was working all day and had church the following morning, but he immediately recognized every single person in the image, including Nolan. According to Shepard, the photo had never been uploaded to serve as evidence of anything. It was part of a casual, routine photo dump, a collection of recent summer memories compiled and posted online on July 5. The internet had conflated the date of the upload with the date of the event, transforming a happy memory from late June into a fictitious murder scene in early July. Shepard didn't mince words when describing the online reaction, calling the internet's theories unbelievable and heartbreaking. But the collapse of the pool party theory was only half the story. The second, more dramatic confrontation between internet fiction and real-world fact involved the viral boat audio, the recording that the family's lead attorney, Benjamin Crump, had played on national television while asserting his belief that the screaming voice belonged to a panicked Nolan Wells. The person who finally set the record straight was, once again, Tristan Shepard. In an interview with ABC News, Shepard dropped a bombshell that directly contradicted the narrative presented on Good Morning America. "That's the video I'm referring to," Shepard stated plainly to the reporters. "That's me yelling. The voice demanding a cell phone back did not belong to Nolan Wells. It had never belonged to Nolan Wells." Shepard explained the chaotic context behind the shaky footage. He had not been in an argument with Nolan at all. Instead, he had gotten into a heated, separate altercation with a total stranger near the island. The tension had escalated so quickly that two of his own friends had to physically restrain him to keep the peace. The frantic shouting captured on the recording was Shepard reacting to the stranger and the restraint, completely unrelated to Nolan's disappearance. This was no longer just a matter of internet commentators getting a theory wrong. This was an on-record, sworn contradiction between a high-profile family attorney broadcasting a theory to millions of viewers and an actual eyewitness who was present on the water. Shepard wasn't just talking to the media, he had gone down to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department and given an official, formal statement to investigators, locking his account into the state's legal record. The fallout from this sudden collapse of the viral narrative was immediate and severe. The true crime creators who had built their channels on daily updates about the pool party murder were suddenly forced to delete videos or issue quiet corrections. But the real-world consequences were far more dangerous than bruised digital reputations. Shepard revealed to ABC News the terrifying cost of trying to correct the record in the age of viral outrage. Since the moment Nolan's body was recovered, he and the other teenagers in their friend group had been subjected to a relentless barrage of doxing and death threats. The internet had cast them as villains in a murder mystery, and even when faced with metadata and eyewitness contradictions, the digital mob was reluctant to give up the plot. Shepard explained that the fear of vigilante justice was the sole reason he refused to speak on camera for his interviews. Stepping forward to tell the truth had effectively put a target on his back. With the pool party photo exposed as an old memory and the boat video proven to be an entirely different argument, the two main pillars of the online conspiracy theory were utterly demolished. The crowdsourced investigation had failed, blinded by its own desire for a sensational twist. Yet, as the smoke cleared from the digital wreckage, a chilling realization took hold. The fact that the internet had invented a wild conspiracy did not mean Nolan's death was a simple accident. By stripping away the viral lies, observers were finally forced to look at what remained, a collection of quiet, verified, and deeply unsettling facts that had been sitting in plain sight all along. The fiction was gone, but the mystery of what actually happened on Horn Island was about to become much darker. When you strip away the digital fiction, the fabricated timelines, and the misidentified audio, you are left with the cold, unyielding reality of a tragedy. The collapse of the social media narrative did not solve the mystery of Nolan Wells's death, it merely cleared the room of unnecessary noise so that the actual evidence could be evaluated. What remained was a series of verified facts, strange structural delays, missing digital data, and a fundamental conflict between a grieving family, a defensive group of friends, and an official apparatus moving toward a grand jury. The primary anomaly of the case resides in the initial hours of July 4 and the morning of July 5. According to verified records, Nolan arrived at Horn Island with his group of friends to celebrate Independence Day. By that afternoon, his friends boarded their boat and departed the island. Nolan did not. Later that night, realizing her 18-year-old son had not returned, Nolan's mother filed a missing persons report. However, the timeline of the rescue response contains significant gaps. Records obtained from an official public records request revealed that a friend within Nolan's group made an initial call to the Coast Guard around 11 p.m. on July 4. Yet, a formal, coordinated search involving multiple state agencies did not officially launch until approximately noon the following day, nearly 13 hours later, when the Jackson County Sheriff's Office formally requested Coast Guard assistance. Part of the explanation for this delay emerged through dispatch audio and state GPS tracking data. According to reports from NBC News and CBS News, the Friends boat had suffered a severe mechanical malfunction on the evening of July 4. GPS tracking data from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources showed the vessel arriving at the Fort Bayou boat launch at 7:19 p.m. From there, the boat was towed overland by a vehicle directly to the Biloxi residence of the boat's owners. The question confronting investigators was not whether a crime occurred on the water, but whether the panic and logistical chaos of a sinking, malfunctioning boat caused a fatal delay in reporting that a member of the party had been left behind. Then there is the matter of physical evidence, specifically Nolan's cell phone. Nolan's mother confirmed that when her son went missing, his phone remained in the possession of one of his friends. When she initially questioned this friend, he claimed he had no idea where Nolan was. The family eventually recovered the device, but the transfer of custody created a major investigative bottleneck. Nolan's mother publicly alleged that when she reviewed the phone, critical data, specifically Snapchat history and communication logs from the day of his disappearance, had been wiped. While forensic extraction has yet to independently verify this claim, the tension surrounding the phone became a central legal battleground. For weeks, the family's lead attorney, Benjamin Crump, withheld the device from the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, citing the family's right to conduct a parallel, independent forensic review. It wasn't until a highly charged press conference on July 15 that both sides finally agreed to a joint inspection, allowing experts from both the state and the family to examine the digital architecture of the phone simultaneously. Beyond the digital data, human anomalies began to surface. While many of the young people present on Horn Island that day remained silent, paralyzed by fear of public doxing, digital harassment, and death threats, one critical witness was identified. Her name was Katie. According to public statements made by her sister, Gracie McCormick, Katie was the last known person to interact with Nolan before he vanished. Katie's account directly challenged the narrative put forth by Nolan's friends. Her family stated that on the afternoon of July 4, Nolan's friends were actively and aggressively pressuring him to end his conversation with Katie so they could board the boat and leave. Assuming Nolan was following his group back to the vessel, Katie left the area on a separate boat, assuming everyone was returning home safely. She did not witness what happened in the precise moments between that pressure and the boat's ultimate departure without him. On July 6, the ultimate consequence of those missing hours was realized. A National Park Service ranger spotted Nolan's body floating in the water near the northwestern tip of Horn Island. The condition of the body added another layer of grim complexity to the case. The Jackson County coroner could not perform a standard visual identification. Instead, the state had to rely on dental records to officially confirm Nolan's identity. While the Jackson County Sheriff's Office has maintained that the case is a death investigation rather than a homicide, with drowning as the suspected cause, the official manner of death remains unreleased. The state autopsy is stuck in a weeks-long holding pattern waiting for a final toxicology report. Refusing to wait on the state's timeline, the Wells family had Nolan's body transported to Washington, D.C., for a private, independent autopsy. The compounding anomalies, the missing phone data, and the conflicting accounts of Nolan's final moments on the beach eventually pushed the case past a critical legal threshold. On July 15, following an emotional, closed-door meeting between Nolan's parents and the Jackson County District Attorney, officials confirmed that the investigation would be presented to a grand jury. A grand jury presentation does not equal an immediate criminal conviction, nor does it guarantee that homicide charges are imminent. What it signifies is that the state recognizes enough unresolved friction, conflicting timelines, and potential negligence to warrant a formal judicial review. Furthermore, local authorities confirmed they have initiated contact with the FBI to assist in reviewing the digital and jurisdictional complexities of an investigation that spans land, state waters, and federal park boundaries. Nolan Xavier Wells's story did not end with a viral video or a cinematic social media confession. It ended in the quiet, methodical halls of the justice system. The noise of the internet has finally faded, leaving behind an empty beach, a broken family, a grand jury docket, and a fundamental demand for the one thing the internet could not provide, the unvarnished truth.